Anything before about 5 or 6, I don't really remember. But my parents got divorced when I was around 7 or 8 years old. And shortly after the divorce, my mom remarried. And just a couple months after she remarried, my brother got diagnosed with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. My mother's a carrier, so she passed it along to my brother. There's a 50-50 chance that I am a carrier, but if I ever decide to have kids, I'm gonna get tested. So he walked for a while. We got diagnosed when he was about 5. It transitioned from feet braces all the way up to full leg braces, and then to a scooter, and then to partial chair, and to wheelchair fully at about 14, 15, and he's 22 now, so. After he was diagnosed, about a month after, my grandma got really, really sick. And so that was a lot to handle as a child. It started with simple drugs all the way to the really heavy stuff and everything in between. And this went on for a good chunk of my life. But during the time of her addiction, there was the man that got her hooked on drugs in the first place he was grooming my mother for manipulation, but also grooming me. Yeah, it was just simple like touches here and there, or hugging a little bit too long, or being a little bit creepy enough to where a 9-year-old would notice. And so then as I turned about 10 and 11, when, I mean, being honest, I've been curvy my entire life. I had boobs at 8 years old. I had hips, I had a butt, and it was, I was a young child, but with women parts. Cameron and I were younger, we would used to sleep in the bed with them and my mom. And so when she went to travel, that didn't change.
Right.
And that's when the actual physical part of it started. It became like a hand over the crotch, but over clothes during sleep. And I knew from like the get-go, I was like, this isn't right. I just knew. When this started, there was something in my brain that was like, no one's gonna believe me. Why should I say anything? At 9 years old, I had that thought. It wasn't like a threat of hurt, but it was no, you can't say anything, because that would make your mama very upset. And I was like, well, I don't want her upset. I don't want my mom sad. So after it was over, it became under, and it moved on to up on the chest as well. And him and my brother were like this. They were so close. And I knew that I felt like I needed to assert myself in the middle of that situation during sleeping time, because the thought of that happening to my brother just ruined me, and I couldn't let that happen. And that's when it became the worst, because there wasn't a possibility of anybody walking in, anybody finding out. It was like finger penetration, small thing. That's what I would call it to myself. I'm like, oh, this isn't a big deal, because I knew that, one, I had to pretend that nothing was wrong. No one would have known. He painted this perfect life for himself outside of the walls that we lived in. But during that time when my mom was away, it started with finger and then left to like physical with his penis. And shortly after my mom came back, they went to get a loan to build a house, and she spent all of it in 3 months on drugs. So they divorced then and there. And at that time I was about 13, 14 years old. And so the abuse stopped completely, because my dad took me and my brother away because my mom got put into rehab. And he was like, no, she's got to get better before she has you guys. So at about 14 years old, I can remember building up so much hatred in my life. And at this point, I had almost, I wouldn't say forgot about it, but I had buried it so far that I didn't think about it anymore. My father drank, and that became my excuse as to why I acted the way I did. And that also hindered my relationship with my dad a lot. So I didn't do the of going wild, and it was just, I didn't have any motivation for life. I didn't want to do anything. And that became evident. So I was really good in school. It's just I didn't care about anything else. And I didn't gear that towards depression. I just thought I didn't care. So at 18 years old, I was, this is when I used to be heavily involved in church, but we were doing a small group, and I don't know, I was like, fuck, I gotta say something. And I didn't want to, because my mom was right next to me. But I ended up speaking out very briefly. I didn't go into all the details about what happened. And then a couple days later, we took it to the police. I had to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. It eventually my case got picked up by the DA. And so I was like, I got this. I feel like he can get charged or whatever. And they're like, we just need a confession from him. So I actually had to call him and talk on a burner phone and talk to him for a little bit, use the nickname he used to call me, and have a normal conversation. And he didn't come out and say, yeah, I did, but he said, I don't know what you're talking about, but if anything would have happened, you would have enticed me to do it. And the detective was like, okay, that's it. That's enough. We've got it. And then a couple months later, it just got completely dropped. And that's something that I still like struggle with, because it felt like they didn't care. And that's just something that happens with this system all the time. People care more they don't care about survivors of this stuff, because they'll just drop your case with no explanation at all. And that's what people are like, well, why didn't you do anything? And that's one of the reasons, is because I'm like, I'm not going to go through this like 3 times for it to get dropped again. And I was fine, or so I thought, for a couple of years, and I hit this dark depression that not many people knew about. I wouldn't sleep. I'd have horrible sleep paralysis that made me sleep two hours every night. I was scared to go to sleep. I was scared to go anywhere. I was scared to drive, because there were times I would drive on the road and I would see him and he would wave at me like nothing ever happened. And I was scared to see him out. I couldn't function. I didn't know how to do anything. So I completely was like forgot the thought of counseling at about 22 years old. I was like, whatever, I don't care, I'm not doing it. And that's about the time that we met, actually.
Yeah.
But you understood me in a way that not a lot of people did, so I felt like I could get a lot that I had out of my system and just word vomit. So after doing that, I was like, well, shit, maybe I should try this counseling thing again. Okay. And first session, we sit down, he goes, have you tried EMDR therapy? And at this point, I had about 5 people talk about EMDR therapy with me. Anyway, we immediately, and I mean, you could probably remember how fucked up I was during that time of processing things that I hadn't processed in years. And about 5 months into the counseling, I stopped. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And then I kind of just had something click in me of, in order for it to work, I have to work at it outside of the walls of my counseling room. I always say that if you were to look at me from a year ago, not on a physical standpoint, but if you were to have a conversation with me a year ago to where I am now, they're 2 different people. Because at that time, I went to counseling because I knew that I felt like I wasn't going to be alive in a year, and that scared me. It was like, it was my last hope. Because I was in so much pain, the last thing I wanted to do was be alive. Like, I was like, it's too much pain, and I'm a burden on everyone around me by dealing with this pain. And I mean, you and I cried on the floor about it. Because I was like, I'm causing pain within my family and discord within my family because they don't know how to deal with me and say the right things and comfort me. And I was like, well, I'm gonna figure this shit out on my own then. That's what I did. And I slowly built the strong support system around me. It just took a lot. And there were times where I would just scream and cry into the pillow because I was like, I don't know how to get everything out. But I feel like now I'm at the point where I can talk about what happened, I can be honest about what happened, and I can also be honest with myself and not just with who I'm talking to. Because I lied to myself for so long to survive and to make it that I wasn't, no one knew. Because and so when people found out and I started being honest about it on social media and in real life, the amount of people that were like, I would have had no idea because you just acted so happy and you didn't act like a normal sexual assault survivor. I got that so much. I get so mad at myself for not saying anything. Say something. Even if they don't believe you, say something to somebody. And there's anonymous tip lines that you can actually call. And they've created safe ways for people to talk about what's happening if they need to tell somebody. When I decided that I was going to get better for my sake and no one else's, that's when I noticed a change, and that I noticed it actually worked because I decided that I was going to do this for me and only me. But it started working because I wasn't trying to please anybody else.
And what do you think? Do you think that being a part of what we're doing here, do you think that has been helpful in having you find the part of yourself that was ready to move forward with all of this?
Oh, 1,000%. And my mom can even attest and let me add really quickly before, my relationship with my mother and I we're good now. It took a lot to fix that. But we both had to go through hard times to get that. But anyway, she noticed a change in how even I dressed. I became a little bit more loud with what I was wearing, a little bit more bold and confident, and instead of just wearing neutrals and blending in with everybody. And so that I was able to use that as a language, as we always say, fashion is language. I was able to use that language to speak in ways that I knew I couldn't at the time, which helped me grow my confidence inside. And then once I had a transformation of my internal thoughts, my internal development, it started transforming the outside. So I just wanted to get healthier on the outside the way that I was on the inside. And by doing that, it's creating a positive effect and cycle that I'm hoping now that, because I've become comfortable with talking about what happened and being honest, that I've been able to actually talk with people who have worked with us that have been in similar situations. I have been exactly where you are, and I know how you feel, and I'm validating everything you're saying. But know that there is an other side where there is, like, you can create a life for yourself that is not, like,
It's okay.
Like, I'm not what happened to me. It's just a part of me. And it took me up until recently to realize that. And it doesn't make me like a victim anymore. It makes me a survivor. So
You're more than a survivor. I think you're a leader.
thank you.
And we really, I love you. I appreciate you being a part of what we do. And hopefully this will serve to help anyone out there who's in a similar situation. Thank you for telling your story.
Thank you. I love you.
Love you too.
Ooh. Be real. B for booger real.
Oh, God. You're disgusting.
I know.